everybody. So my name is Drew. I am the owner of New Hampshire Float in the state of New Hampshire. Um, my background, and one of the reasons I actually like this, I enjoy people. I think like the weirder the better. I'm always fascinated by people. But my background is that I have a background in social services. I was an actual social worker for the state of Massachusetts for a while. Um, really wild, like I, remove children from parents' arms type of thing. I've been a probation officer. I did contract work for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Um, through all of these types of jobs that I've had lots of training on listening, on investigations, on how to read people, how to hear what people are not saying, which I think is an important skill to learn. Um, how to read body language, how to ask questions that might be uncomfortable to ask. And I do that in my float center all the time. I'll say, you don't have to answer this, but, and I'll ask a really personal question. And sometimes people are thrown off like, whoa, that's kind of personal, but they answer, right? So you can gain a lot of information simply by looking at someone and asking questions. So I have about 18 years of that type of experience. And for all of my faults and lack of experience that I had in opening a float center, I was at least able to have great customer service. And I messed up a lot when I first opened, and I was able to avoid negative feedback or a negative reputation, negative reviews, simply by how I interacted with people, because not everyone came in, had an awesome experience, but I was cool enough and interacted well enough that they weren't going to go out and bash the place. They were, still willing to say positive things about me. So it was definitely something I noticed that my background had prepared me in dealing with people. And I think at a float center, when you're behind the desk, you can often find yourself almost like a bartender where you're chatting with people. And I think there's an art to that. I've always been pretty passionate about that. And I think you can really make somebody feel a lot more comfortable through your interactions and feel less comfortable through your lack of interactions. So that's why I'm interested in this. I'm on the, what did we officially call it, Mandy? Is it the marketing and awareness committee for our committee? We combined a couple committees, and I'm on the committee for that with the FTA, on the FTA board of directors. And, when we were coming up with roundtables and discussions to do, I definitely volunteered on this because also I see what goes on the Float Collective, and I don't always comment, but I definitely see one side of things when people discuss an interaction they've had with a customer, and I instantly come up with 20 questions that might end up with a different result than what I see on the Float Collective. So I'm pretty passionate about that.
And Drew, I think to be fair too, with this world, there's so much employee turnover that having consistency, having it written out like you were saying, and just having those training tools will make everyone's lives easier while we figure out how to work through this transition.
Totally. And one of the reasons I actually did write some of the things that I say in the PDF that we have available, I've told my staff, say it this way, because when they're interacting, they don't necessarily realize how when you ask certain questions, you can get an answer. Like I know what people are going to say if I say, "Did you like the float?" Up here in the Northeast, people are miserable, especially in the wintertime. First thing is going to be something negative. And then you get to the like, well, how do you feel? And oh yeah, it'll go from I bumped the wall a couple of times. It's always it's interesting. The people, they're just the first thing can tend to be a negative reaction. So I try to spin that a little bit. And I've told my employees specifically, here's things to say. If you're not sure what to say, I have a young, not that her age has anything to do with it, but she's just inexperienced in life. So she doesn't know how to talk with people. So I'll give a script that you can give to people. And it's interesting to say those things and see what you get back. Everyone's different. Some people don't want to talk to you, right? Just gonna, yeah, cool, and go. And you have to be able to realize that too. They want to talk, they want to go. Awesome. I'll get to cleaning and you can go on your night. I kind of love those people. But yeah, with new employees and turnover, I think the more information you can make available, the better, right?
Yeah, what are some of the most common, say, negative pieces of feedback that you ever hear from clients that walk in that you
So
have to rebuttal?
So I find the bumping of walls will be something. Uh, the light switch tends to be something. I didn't know how to turn the light switch off. It's like, yeah, I've said that 3 times. I could tell when you were playing with your phone that you weren't really paying attention. Um, and you know what I get a lot, and I'm still having trouble explaining this one, and maybe someone can shoot me a message as well on this. But you know, when you get into that theta state and you get into a good meditative zone, sometimes you can get that rush of cold, that kind of like a cool feeling that comes over you. That's something that people will, come out and say, I got cold for a minute in the middle and then I kind of snapped out of it. And I warmed up a little bit after that. And I think there's this dip, and I don't do a good enough job of explaining that one, but um, those are some of the common complaints that I would say. Getting water in your eyes. I definitely hear that one. No matter how many times I say, be careful, move slowly, people will get water in their eyes. Um, so things like that, not being able to sit still, the silence. There's a lot of people who come in and just complain about it being silent. I was bored. Yeah, right. That's what people come here for. They want to be bored, right? So really anything. And I've learned to be almost like a politician in that you can also address things without addressing the specific issue at hand. Um, and it's interesting to see once you get to know your customers. In the wintertime, I'll tell older females to dry their chest because the water after the shower, or not chest, but torso, the water after the shower, they take a hot shower, they get into the float tank, that water cools off. So there are ways to mitigate, you know, or understand or even stereotype your customers and try to avoid issues before they happen. And the more you talk with them, the more you learn from them. Up here in New Hampshire, a lot of people, they call them snowbirds. They go to Florida and those people want to be warm. Even if I tell them we want to have a neutral temperature, they want to be warm. So I try to give them tips on how to be warm and, not take a too hot of a shower, take a shorter shower, um, not move around too much. Don't splash the water up onto your torso to warm yourself up because you'll just get into that cycle of cooling off after the water dries out a little bit. So, and all of that comes from, talking with your customers and interacting with them and learning where they're from, why they here, what do they like, what don't they like, how adventurous are they nervous? And obviously, the more I think the more that people um, present as negative, the more you want to stay positive, and you can get that from them simply by talking with them. So I know it's not always easy either, because sometimes people just show up and you have to get them right in. But oftentimes, and a lot of us use Float Helm, and so I'm not familiar with all the other features, but anything where you can take appointment notes, I think is a very useful tool. So that's definitely where I'm going to start with this, because for Float Helm, which, not to plug a business, but I love Float Helm, the people who are floating can make a note, and we can make a note if we're booking somebody over the phone. When I see notes, I'm always looking a few days ahead of my appointments. And when I see notes, I address them. So, um, you know, it could be anything from it's a surprise for so and so, it could be first timer, a little nervous. Do I wear a bathing suit? I don't want to be in the coffin. So I'll go and look at some of these notes. And when I see things that kind of give me a reason to reach out to the person, I'll absolutely do that. And I think this is part of offering great customer service if you see a note that someone says, it's my first time, I'm a little nervous, why wait until they show up before you address that? It's very easy, and it is an awesome look if you pick up the phone and call and say, yeah, I was just looking ahead at the appointments. I noticed you made a note that you were a little nervous about floating. Thought I'd just give you a call and talk about it, see if you had any questions. Maybe I can answer some of those questions for you. And you can have these incredible conversations with people. And oftentimes people just want a voice to walk them through what is actually going to happen. And recently, I've really become more aware of and trying to remember when first timers come into float. I'm so far removed from being a first timer that I forget. I forget how nervous it is. And I when people ask me my first time, it was such a weird interaction, but it was 14, 15 years ago at this point. So I kind of forget that. And I'm an expert floater and I'm very comfortable with it. And I forget that a lot of people are not. So
Drew,
often,
do you train your employees to do that as well, or is that just kind of like an intuition thing that you're looking for on the calendar, or is that like a training step?
so I struggle with having employees and being a good trainer. I should be training them, but it's something I do. And I also look at it as I actually say, my name's Drew. I'm the owner. I saw a note, and people love hearing from the owner, right? They think that's great. So I should be putting that on my staff. I don't, but it's definitely something that I think people should be training staff to do. Um, Especially if they're call aheads. I know some people will call ahead for reminders and appointments. It's it's very easy if most people just want to know what's going to happen. And you can show them all the videos, but they like to hear it from a voice.
Mhm.
So there's that, or the bathing suit question. I think a lot of people have a little bit of anxiety. Do I wear a bathing suit? Do I not? And they're really focused on that. We don't want them to be focused on that. We want people to be focused on coming in, shutting off from the outside world, whatever stressors they have in their life, forgetting about them. We don't want to add to that. So taking away the mystery to me is really important. And the first time is often more of an adventure than it is this relaxing experience. Yeah, people get there to that relaxing point, but that emotion coming into their first experience is anxiety, unknown, nervousness. Um, Once you get rid of all of that and you've done something once, it's completely different. Your comfort level the second time of doing something is obviously going to be better than the first. So um, addressing those concerns ahead of time is, in my opinion, an invaluable tool. And I often end a phone conversation with just whoever's on the other line, like loving me, because I not only answer their questions, but I actually walk people through. You'll come in, you'll sit down, fill out a waiver, watch a video. We'll talk about it. We'll bring you into the room, show you around the room. There's lights that go out. If you move around, they go on. You control the lights, keep a light on the entire time. The darkness is definitely something a lot of people are concerned about, but won't necessarily say. Or I've seen notes that say, please leave a light on. So I'll call and ask about that. Surprises. I don't like when I see surprises. I think people should be telling people they're coming to float unless they've specifically said, I want to float, because I've had that go not so well. Or what if someone books an appointment for first thing in the morning, doesn't tell the person they're surprising, and they have a big old cup of espresso first thing in the morning? And then they don't end up having a great float because they're wired and wide awake. And now they think, meh, right? And all it would take is a phone call to say, hey, there's some things they should prepare about. Don't shave. What if that person shaved first thing in the morning? And then they're like, surprise, you're jumping into a 1,000-pound tank of Epsom salt. So there are things that you can do to be proactive to help people, um, prepare properly. And again, especially, and I guess this more so goes with the first time floaters who don't know what to expect. And this is also your chance at a first impression. And I say that as a person to person first impression. We could get into the first impression of whether it be your reputation or your website, but once they're in the door, or once you have them on the phone, um, you get to interact with them, and you get to um, kind of let them know what type of vibe you have at your place. Are you cold? Are you rude? Are you listening? Are you listening to what they're saying? Are you hearing their concerns, or are you just blowing through them? So um, it's definitely, I think, a great way to connect with your customers before they even show up. And I'm big on the psychological aspect of planting positive seeds so that they're thinking in a positive light. And when someone, and it can be difficult when someone's just talking about the negative, I try to turn it into a joke and say, well, we'll focus on the positive, and hopefully you'll at least shut off for an hour, and you won't have to worry about the Ukraine for an hour. Whatever they bring up that's causing their stressors, I try to turn that into a positive for them. Um,
Do you do it
but
day prior? Do you do it day of?
No, I definitely try to do at least one day before. Yeah. And preferably a couple days before, just in case something comes up and we have to cancel. I've had that. I've seen a note about you know, I have I have no legs, will need help getting in. I'm not waiting till the day. As soon as I saw that, I reached out and called that person to discuss mobility issues. So ideally, I like to do that, a couple days before. And because also the day before, if someone says first time really nervous and they booked for 30 days from now, they're just going to be nervous for 30 days every time they think about floating. So I want to call that person immediately and talk with them and answer any questions they have. And if they're bringing a guest, tell them, hey, no problem. I even offer people to stop by. Hey, if you're in the area, come by. I'll show you the tanks. It's way bigger than you think. And I actually say that a lot. Most people, they get in front of it and go, oh, it's way bigger than I thought it would be. And I kind of giggle. So, um, trying to address those concerns so that they're not just dwelling on a negative, in my opinion, leads to that great customer service. And then they'll, for a month, they're going to say, oh, I can't wait to go floating. I talked to the owner. I was a little nervous. He was awesome, answered all my questions. I can't wait to go. I was nervous before I spoke with him. Now I'm really excited. So you want to flip that nervousness into an excitement.
Yeah,
So
I think the one liner that I say to everyone on those calls is you're 100% in control. I start there every time. I start there on every tour. Psychologically, that like helps people with claustrophobia, with anyone that has like questions about the lights, about the door, about everything. I just remind them first thing first, you're 100% in control of this experience.
I love that. And I actually do say that to people. You're in complete control of the lights, of getting out. I've had those questions. How long am I stuck in there for? You're not stuck in anything. You get out at any time you want. When two people are filling out the emergency waivers, I'll hear a joke. What if I what if I want to get out? I say, you're in full control. You can get out. You can leave a light on. What do you think's going to happen? Like, I'm not locking you in. I have no locks. You can get out at any time. And I'll try to make a joke of that if I hear something. But you're right, saying you're in full control. And that's actually a great point, is um, allowing them to feel they're in control helps with feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling that if there's an emergency, they'll be okay. And that will help them to relax more than if they think they're not in full control. Right.
Right.
So I like that one a lot. I think that's a great point.
So Jocelyn
So
brought up a good point that you can answer, Drew. Do you
yeah,
use a note system to track these calls, or how do you track that?
totally. Again, I go to this awesome system called Float Helm. Actually, no, it's called Helmbot. My apologies. Old habits die hard. So Helmbot is phenomenal, and I would assume all booking softwares have some type of note system.
Mhm.
But yes, writing down as much information as you can when you interact with your customers is so important, not just for you, but for communication of any employee who comes now or in the future, and paints them a picture of who this person is. Were
How
they
can you
nervous?
tell if someone hasn't been called yet? Or can you? Or are you looking at those ahead of time and just doing your own audit?
So we use a system. There's an exclamation point in Helm that you can do to say there's notes. So I've always just told my employees, always hit that. I've never told them there's an option. I just say hit that. And that way you can hover over it and see notes,
Got it.
which I love that feature. So you don't even have to click on it. If you just hover the cursor over it real quick,
Mhm.
it'll pop up and show you what you have. So um, at least for Helm, and again, I maybe someday I'll have to sit down and go through some of these other softwares. But yeah, any of the notes that you can take, I think that's really important. And also, maybe you call someone on a Monday and they canceled their appointment on Friday, and now they're coming back a month later, and you forget the conversation that you had when you spoke with them 6 weeks ago. So that's a great way to refresh your memory and kind of keep track of what happened with that interaction.
Cool.
Yeah. So as much info as you can get before, awesome. So now we're going to jump to kind of the pre-float and the check-in interactions, because this is something I'm going to try to stay away from telling stories because we all have stories, but this one really sticks out with me. Not everyone knows this, but when I first opened my float center, I had a business partner, and one day, we had just opened. I'm interacting with a customer. Another one walked in. He was standing over my shoulder, staring at the new customer who came in, didn't say a word. And it got to the point where I'm talking with one customer and I had to hit him. I said, say hello. Very basic. Say hello. Look at the person and welcome them to your space. They're coming to you. They're a guest in your house, in your place of work, in your comfort zone. So when they come in, you look someone in the eye, smile, and say, hi, welcome. It's a completely different interaction than if you don't look at someone in the eye, you don't smile, and you say, hi, welcome. Smiling I'm going to repeat this one a lot. Smiling to me is very important. And um, I was going to put this into my notes, but it was going into the weeds. So I left this out. But smiling, there are studies done about the positive effects of smiling and how people react to that. So I can't stress enough that and what I do, this is kind of a little trick I do. I love to not be smiling when someone comes in, look them in the eye, and then smile. Because if I'm already smiling, then I'm just looking at them. But then I look them in the eye, see them, and then smile. I'm psyched to see them. So, first and foremost, look at them, say welcome, say hi. My name is, I like to go with, hey, I'm Drew, welcome. And usually they'll say their name back, but oftentimes they don't. They just go, hi. And I'll maybe turn into a joke and say, are you Chrissy or Joe? And she says, I'm Chrissy. And I say, I was a 50-50 shot. So, it's one of those things where the more you can be excited, happy, um, expressive in showing them that you're happy that they are there. And I know you can run into some cultural issues with this because there are cultures that you don't look each other in the eye. Um, so there is a little bit of a caveat there, but I like respect is looking at people, speaking to them, um, asking them their name, trying to make them feel comfortable when they come into your space. So, especially when someone is in for a first time float, I say, um, hey, my name's Drew. What's your name? They say, I'm Joey. I'll repeat back their name. I say, hi, Joey. Welcome. It's nice to meet you. Repeating back someone's name will help you remember it. So that's why I do that. I try to say it a couple times so I remember it. Um, I will ask if it's their first float. Yeah, I just did it today. I spoke with someone this morning. He was going to cancel his float and ended up not canceling it. He came in about an hour and a half later, and I said, "Is it still your first float, or did you jump in a float tank between the now and the last time I talked with you?" He giggled and said, "Yeah, it's still my first float." And corny little joke, but it lightened the mood. He had a little ha ha ha, and see, put a smile on his face. So um, that's a little first time thing that I do. And this is also where I'll notice if someone's in on a gift certificate, I'll bring that up. You got a gift certificate? Who gave you the gift certificate? Ask them who gave it. If it's a boss and they say my staff, I joke, "Oh, you must be stressed out." They're telling you something, and we make a little joke about it. Um, if it's a loved one, I might not say, "Oh, your husband thinks you're stressed out. He wants you to float." But I might say, "That's awesome." And um, I'll say this later, but I thank, I always thank people after they floated. I ask them to thank the person who gave them their float as a gift certificate. I, I'll ask who gave it to them at the beginning. And when they leave, if they had a good float, I say, "Hey, will you tell your brother, thanks for sharing that with you? That's awesome. I think it's great when people are thinking about others and getting their self care and maybe buying something that you wouldn't have done for yourself, but at least that got you in here to try that." And that's a little, I don't want to call it a technique, but that's a little something extra because then they're going to go back and talk to the person who gave them that float and say, "Yeah, the guy said thanks. He was pumped that you bought that gift certificate for me." So again, a little extra customer service there. The uh, biggest thing I try to find out is why people are there. If you have time when they show up beforehand, this can give you an indication of what they're into and what's going on in their lives. I put two categories together. I think there's actually three. I think there's people who just want a cool experience and they're like, "Woo, let's have some fun." And then there's physical and mental reasons that people come in. Physical health, body pain; mental health, stress, PTSD, anxiety, depression, the whole gamut. Um, so trying to figure out which category people fall into, in my opinion, is important because then you can discuss things with them. And it's interesting when you get to know or ask, "What brings you in here?" It was a gift certificate. Okay, fine. If they purchased it themselves, "What brings you in here?" Simple question. "What do you mean?" "Oh, I just want to try it." "Yeah, but most people come in here because they're either stressed out or in body pain." I'll use examples of reasons people come in, and then they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I got that. I got that." And next thing you know, they're opening up saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm not sleeping too well. I'm stressed out at work." Okay. So now we can talk about, stressors and why shutting off is important and how it's a practice and how there's no miracle cures and floating won't be a miracle cure for you either. So I'm trying to set the expectation that this is staying positive. This is great. You're coming in, you're trying things, you're trying to find something that helps you to relax and lower your blood pressure and not be so stressed out and maybe sleep better. So I think it's important to, in that short time, and you don't have a lot of time. That's why be direct. Ask the question, "Why are you here? What's going on in your life that made you say, I need a float?" I can tell you about what's going on in my life when I need a float. I'm stressed out. My body's in pain. I'm not sleeping well. I hear that story every day. So I try to normalize the reasons that people come to a float center, so people don't think that there's anything really different about them. If everyone is coming here for a reason, then I have a reason too, and that's okay. Um, so again, through all of this, I'm smiling unless they tell you, something bad, and then you don't want to say, "Oh, you're stressed out," with a big smile on your face. So there is a time and a place for that. But um, yeah, I'll try to use some of the things that we know about floating to reinforce that this is great for people with anxiety. Um, some of the fun facts that we have about the brain. looking similar to someone who took a Xanax pill, yeah, after floating. Some of these your heart rate lowers, blood pressure lowers. Even telling people that ahead of time gives them something to kind of focus on and think positively about, rather than the nervousness of what to expect coming up on their float. Um, as we move along here. So next, I would say about returning floaters. This is another tool that I use. So we kind of talked about first time floaters. The returning floaters are definitely, this is where the notes come in handy. You write, you learn something about a floater, write it down in the notes. They come back a month, 2 months later. You say, "Hey, how was that vacation? You went to Florida after you left here, right?" Oh yeah, you remember that? Yeah, that was awesome. Went with my grandmother. We brought the kids. They loved it. If you can utilize those notes with returning floaters, you're building that rapport. You're building the relationship that will get people to not just float at your center, but float with you. So even if a float center next door comes by, they'll still have some type of loyalty because they like going to see Drew and speaking with Drew. And next thing you know, it's been 6 months and Drew knows everything about me. So people find this comfort level with routine and consistency. So this one can be a little more difficult if there's turnover in the staff all the time. But if they at least feel as though you know them with the notes, and I think there's an easy way to, even if you're new, say, "Oh yeah, it looks like you know you're from here, you do this," and getting to know people. And this is also, I think this is important. Talk less when you're talking with customers. Listen more, talk less. Let them do the talking. When I heard this great advice one time, it's always stuck with me. Be a when you're agreeable, people like you. When you're right, they'll think you're an asshole. So if you're just agreeing with people and they're not having any friction, they think you're awesome. If you are trying to be right about something and the other person doesn't think you're right, you're going to butt heads. They're going to think negatively of you. So um, when you make your notes, you can kind of stay consistent with how you're speaking with someone in particular. You don't want to talk to a Trump supporter about a certain topic versus someone who's really liberal about another topic. You want to be kind of aware of who you're talking to and what you're saying, as not to get that person to think negatively of you before they go into float, where they get to think, "Oh, I didn't know that person was like this or like that." So with returning floaters, again, it's always a smile. It's a welcome back. It's a great to see you. "Oh, I look forward to seeing you today. What's going on? How are things?" And if you have a little note, "How is the music? You still playing the drums? Uh, you know, how are the kids? How's your dog?" Especially animals. People love talking about their animals. A quick like, "How's your dog doing?" People love that. Um,
Drew, how about the hard ones? How about the clients who get a little bit too comfortable with you? Do you have any of those that come in and want to make themselves at home and walk into your storage room grabbing their own towels and stuff?
Yeah, so that is a tough one. I try to make jokes about stuff that's happening that I don't like. And I might say, for something like that, I might joke, "Hey, if you keep doing that, I'm going to put a mop in your hand and put you to work. I'll grab it for you. I'm here to wait on you hand and foot. I'm your slave today. I'll take care of that. You don't have to go in there." Um, Trying to be lighthearted at first, and
Mhm.
eventually you have to kind of put some customers into place, right? And that's where things can get a little more awkward. And you want to be stern. You want to be to the point, and you also don't want to say something, have it be awkward, and then put someone right in the float. You want to end whatever happens after flip out the conversation to something positive. Awesome weather today.
Move
Weather's a
on.
big one. You can go to the weather, right? But you don't want to leave any negative interaction as the last thing before someone gets into their float or leaves the door, right? You want to try to get them to forget about that and move on. And the more the older I get, the better I get at just talking through things. And the more you dwell on them and you think about them, it can affect, you'll be thinking about it as you're trying to talk with someone, but forget about it, move on, keep moving forward, act like it never happened. Sometimes you have to do that. Just pretend it never happened, moved on, crack a little joke, change the subject, talk about how awesome the float's going to be. And also, as people, if people are going and, grabbing their own towel, I would look at that and say, how do I put that? I have some people that will ask for a second towel. I, I put a second towel down. If they go and are grabbing a second towel, shame on me for not putting the second towel out. Right. So for me, I try to make it so that I do everything for people. All they have to do is walk in, take off their clothes, float, put their clothes on, and leave. By the time that person walks in the door for their appointment, everything should be set for them. There shouldn't be any scrambling. There shouldn't, and of course, things happen that puts us behind, but that's also a great time. If you find that people are doing things on their own or being difficult, maybe examine how much time you have between floats. Do you have enough time to be prepared for people and address everything that needs to be addressed? And there's nothing wrong with adding a little extra 15 minutes to your schedule. Uh, Better customer service is better than a quick turnover and a sloppy interaction and losing a customer. Take
Well,
your
this is the
time.
last one I'll ask before you move on to the next topic, but
Yeah.
this one specifically I get a lot across all of our locations. What do you say to your return clients who regularly take 45-minute showers?
Okay. So I'm going through that right now. I I try to explain. I have notes, like laminated notes in the rooms that also say, "Please be respectful of everyone's time and to get out." But I give them like one or two times of that, and I do say, "Hey, just a heads up, we really need to get in there to clean. Um, you can use the blow dryer in the bathroom. You can lotion up in the bathroom. You can do X, Y, and Z." If it continues to be a problem, I tell them, hey, I'm going to have to get you out early next time. So then I will start getting people out 5 and 10 minutes early.
Mhm.
And um, I do, and I say, hey, the room's ready. The room's ready when you get here. I need to get it ready for the next person. It's only fair. And I have someone right now. She comes in with 2 duffel bags, a jacket, a scarf, like 4 layers. And then when she leaves, she takes 35 minutes every time. When she leaves, the room smells like she just did a full beauty thing before going out on a big date. And we've had the conversation multiple times. She's like one of my toughest clients right now. She's just in la la land. I don't think she computes it. I keep going back and forth. I think I think she's either like very like space cadet or she's an alcoholic. I'm and my background makes me seriously consider that she might be drinking because of some of the behaviors. And I think that just isn't a norm. That's not normal behavior.
But you
And
usually
we're
tell them before they come in once you know that it's an issue
yeah,
before they go
hey,
on the float.
hey, just a heads up, I'm gonna get you out a few minutes early today so that you can do your showering thing. They say, oh, and that's usually the person who stays in for an extra 5 or 10 minutes and doesn't get out when they're supposed to, right? But yeah, and it can be an issue for sure. But trying to be honest with people, and I try to stay away from you take too long of a shower, right? You don't want to put someone on the defensive. I would more so carefully use my language to say, hey, just a heads up, we need about 15 minutes per room to clean, whatever it may be. And so we like people to try to limit their showers to about 15 to 20 minutes. I'll generalize, say people,
Mhm.
floaters, not you, because then that can put people on the defensive. And I actually did that with somebody, and she said, how can people do that? And she started to defend herself. And I'm looking at her with all her stuff. Like, well, no, I don't. Most people don't go in with 3 bags and all these layers. They come in with one layer of clothes on to start, and they float and leave. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, being general and not specific to the person will help avoid putting people on the defensive. Using generalized examples, and yeah, sometimes you have to just say, look, I don't know why. I don't know how to make it easier for you. So I'm just gonna have to get you out a few minutes early. And if people start losing float time, they start maybe changing behaviors a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right. So again, just to kind of summarize with the pre-float observations, what are people saying? Are they coming in using negative language? Are they saying, are they making jokes? Are they smiling? Are they nervous? Um, Fidgeting, people moving back and forth a lot? Are their voice cracking? Are they stuttering? Are they unable to make eye contact? These are all signs when you're looking at someone that can help you learn what's going on with them. This is another one that I have when people do this, and I'm a nervous rocker too. I'll try to keep my voice to the mic, but when people come in and sit down on the couch, they fill out the waiver, and then the introduction is going on. If they're just rocking, they might be nervous. If someone's eyes are watering up, I came across this about a week ago on Saturday or last weekend. That's why I had added that. Her eyes were watering up as I was asking her if she was excited to float. And she said, no. And I thought, you okay? You gonna cry? We can address it. We can talk. You nervous? What are you nervous about? What are your concerns? Ask them. I'm not going to start speaking about concerns if I don't know what they are. So I'll ask that question. What's wrong? If they're tapping, if someone's tapping on something, there are these signs that people are nervous, even if they're not saying that. So being observant, I think, is definitely important and helps with great customer service, because you can ask those questions and try to get to the bottom of what people aren't saying. Don't forget, you're a stranger. So there's, I think, a benefit to that, because sometimes it's easier to tell strangers personal things. That's like going to a therapist. But also, you're a stranger. So sometimes it's not easy to tell people personal things. But my experience is definitely that the more questions you ask, the more answers you will get. So try it sometime. It can kind of be uncomfortable to ask someone a personal question that you don't know, but I've had people joke like, "Oh, that was personal." And then they answer the question and it's kind of a joke. And it's like, okay, now we're getting to know each other. Now we're letting down our guard, getting a little more comfortable. So then people go in and float. You let them have their session. They do what they do. You're not in there with them. Then when they come out, this is your next interaction with them. Whoever is greeting the floater when they come out, and you should greet the floater rather than let them just kind of cruise around aimlessly in your space. But someone should be there to greet them. This is one that, especially when I have new employees, I try to stress. I do not ask, was it good? Do you like it? Did you like it? How was it? Giving people, um, again, where I'm talking about language and the language you use, asking someone if they were able to get comfortable is going to have them focus on the comfort of the flow versus, did you like it? Well, I kept bumping into the wall. I got some salt in my eyes. Other than that, it was pretty good. No, we want the distractions. The I heard my heartbeat the whole time. It's amazing how many people will come out and talk about their heartbeat. Okay, forget about the heartbeat. How's everything else? You want them to focus on the silence, the comfort of getting all the weight off of their body. Um, and not set them up for a yes or no question. Do you like it? No. Now what? Now what do you say to that person? You'd say, why not? And now you're going to hear the complaints. So why even allow that opportunity, in my opinion? Hey, how do you feel? How do you feel right now? Most people, as we all know, feel better when they come out of a float. So if you have uh, an opportunity to plant that seed, and what you're just planting the seed by asking a question. So you ask, how do you feel? I feel pretty good. Better than when you came in? Yeah. That's usually my standard. I want people to feel better when they come out than when they came in. Did you like it? I don't ask that question. You'll tell people you liked it because you felt better, but you're gonna think about feeling better before you tell people that you liked it. And most people will wait to to give feedback to friends and family. So I do think that when people get out, again, you should smile. You should greet them, say, how are you feeling? Were you able to get comfortable? Um, Here is another opportunity to make notes on their uh, on their account, where if maybe someone wanted an extra towel, maybe somebody got a little cold, maybe somebody, I hear this one actually fairly frequently, at least it seems that way, where someone like has something, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's a thing where their body temperature just runs cooler than others. So I have a tank that I can increase the air temperature in. So we'll make a note, and then next time they come in, you can do that. But again, this is a great opportunity to get information out of people. Did they like it? What did they say after? What were they concerned about? Um, so again, you want to try to focus on their positive experience, but you're going to have people say, I kept bumping into the walls. You're going to have people that say, I got salt in my eyes, or it was a little too dark for me. I don't like that. Or even I hit my butt on the ground. I do think that that happens more than most people will come out and admit that their butt was on the ground. But having responses for these things is something you can develop. There are a lot of what really would go wrong in a float tank: bump on the walls, get water in your eyes, your butt hits the ground, maybe the light doesn't work, right? There's some technical issues, but not a lot can really go wrong in a float tank. So developing responses to these question or common distractions, I like to call them, because if you talk to someone who's been floating for 4 years, they bump off the walls. They don't even think about it. I ask people, you ever bump off the wall? Yeah, I don't even think about it. I used to when I first started floating, but I don't even notice now. So those are types of things that I like to be prepared for and have a response to. So that is my response when people, oh, I couldn't relax. I just heard my heartbeat. Or I, got in and felt great, and I would twitch a lot. I turn the twitch into a positive. And, people will say, I twitched 3 or 4 times right when I was starting to relax. I say, oh, it's annoying, but that's a good sign you were relaxing. That happens in that theta state where you're twitching. You're in a relaxed state to be twitching. So even though they think it was a negative and it was distracting, I'll tell them, well, it's a good sign that you were. So again, trying to stay positive about actually or turning that negative into a positive. The bumping of the walls, I think that's a common one where people say, oh, we kept bumping, or I kept floating, and trying to focus on the positives. The water is like being in outer space. Once you are set in motion, you're going to keep going until you hit something. And you could wiggle your foot and end up slowly drifting. And after 45 minutes, you're not near the light switch, you're in the corner. So,
Jonathan, or I'm sorry, Drew, I always talk
yeah,
to Jonathan. Um, can we open it up too to some what other like commonly asked questions that people get from their customers when they come out of the float?
yeah, let's hear that. Especially if someone has something that they didn't know what to say to that. Like, oh, I didn't know what to say. They said whatever. And yeah, if there's anything anyone has, I would love to hear it.
I think the one that I would love to hear answers on is what you tell people when they say, I just couldn't shut my brain off.
I love that question. Yeah, it's a practice. It's not easy. I often go to the car analogy when people say they couldn't shut their brain off. Cars are supposed to idle around 1,000 RPMs. When they get in the red, it's the danger zone. We as people in our society are so connected. We're constantly in the red. So when you're idling in the red, you're idling at you know an intense, highly active, stressed out level, and not getting down to that 1,000 RPMs. And most people get that. And I say, what do you do? What else do you do? I don't do anything. I wake up at 6 in the morning and it's go time until about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And then I struggle to sleep. Yeah. So it's going to take time for you and your body to be familiar with calm and silence. And I'll even tell people, sit in a dark room for 5 minutes with nothing, just for 5 minutes. Put your phone in the corner, turn it off, set the timer, and start just once a day, once a couple times a week, being quiet. And that will get your mind used to that. But consistency, I'll focus on the practice of being calm and relaxing and shutting off. And I'm usually behind my desk, I'll pick up my phone, my two tablets, the handheld phone, the computer. Say, look at all this technology we have. And um, yeah, so I think that's where I go when people say they had a hard time shutting off their brain. And also, it's a good sign you have a lot going on, right? So you probably need to do more shutting off, because if you can't do that, you have some things going on that you keep thinking about. Probably should address those and get those off your plate, and then practice shutting off, practice being calm, listen to quieter music. I often tell people about binaural beats and listening to binaural beats at night. And again, this is non-floating related tips. I'm not saying come back and spend money here. I'm telling you a few things you can do outside of spending, $75 to float with me. And they're really easy. Go for a walk in the woods. Um, be quiet for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Go get a massage, acupuncture. There's a lot of different things you can do to calm your mind, but you have to make those efforts. We learn so much as we grow up about, you know, uh, brushing our teeth, going to bed, eating properly. We learn all these things. You don't learn about self care, right? You're not being taught in school how stressed out you're going to be when you're 35 years old, and how you should probably take care of yourself, or you'll get high blood pressure and be at risk for diabetes because you're just stress eating. And right. So trying to find um, an understanding of why self care is important and showing that to people, I think is definitely a piece of how I respond to people when they say they can't shut off. Yeah, it's a practice. And I'll point out, stress is bad for you, right? When that old joke, stress, hey man, relax, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. You're going to stress yourself out. Yeah, that really happens. So you should be doing something for you. It's great that you're here. It's great that you're trying. I try to encourage and applaud people. I just said those words today. Husband and wife came in, and he admitted, like, this is my thing, and said, well, I applaud you for coming in and supporting her. That's awesome. Right. So you're practicing, you're trying, you're being positive, and you're focusing on the positives. And I do it with a smile. So
Mhm.
don't forget that. Yeah. What else? Is there something else that people run across?
If it's okay if I just jump in real quick, I wanted to ask I think a really important question, Drew. Um, what do you do when somebody gets out of the tank early?
That one used to just eat me up when people would get out early. Yeah. Ask them, hey, how's it going? What happened? You know, couldn't, not for you. What's the deal? I will ask, what went on. Usually they come out and they'll say whatever reason they got out. Um, So this goes to the it's not for me, right? If they get out early, it's not for me. So first you try to find out why, what happened. I got salt in my eyes and that was it. I blew it. All right. I had to go to the bathroom and it was just like, whatever. My phone kept going off. Oh yeah, you should have shut it off. But for the person who gets out early and says that wasn't for me, I stopped arguing with those people. And I say I'm generalizing those people. To me, if that person came back and floated every single day for a week, they'd have a different opinion of floating. But they're coming in one time, couldn't shut off, and got out. But maybe there's more that's going on. Something that I think happens more frequently than we know. I'm going to get explicit here. Uh, stinging, stinging vaginas, stinging butts, scratches, um, irritations, things that things that I think really happen to people that they don't want to talk about. And you'll never know that something was stinging and making them uncomfortable because they'll never tell you that because they're embarrassed. Hemorrhoids. I don't even know. I think I'm not old enough to start having these issues, but I don't even know what type of issues you could have that could potentially cause stinging that some people suffer from, right? There are people with IBS who have to wipe a lot and they're going to have a micro abrasions that they get into the float and it's stinging fiercely the whole time. They're like, this isn't for me. I don't argue with those people because there could be more to it that they're just not going to explain to you. But I try to ascertain why they got out first and foremost. And sometimes I'll give them another, either a discount or, maybe the significant other. I'll kind of wait. I shoot for 1 out of 2. If 2 people come in at the same time, my goal is for one of them to love it. Because if one of them does, the other one won't think so negatively about it and might just think, well, I didn't have that experience. So maybe I should try it again. I've heard that story a lot. Um, but the getting out, yeah, it's a great question. It's a tough one, but trying to find out why they got out, hopefully they're honest with you and, addressing that reason, yeah, sorry that happened. Or, I mean, I have a wave. I have to start the wave and I've accidentally left it on. Then people get out. I'm like, why'd you get out? Yeah, the water just kept running. What? Oops, that one's on me. Apologize profusely. Give them a free float. Ask for them to come back. Keep apologizing profusely. I just ruined their moment that they blocked off to come and relax. So that's the biggest thing. Ask them why they came out and then address why they came out. What else? Anyone else? Yeah, and actually, I just saw Kim Hannon say how if they say the float wasn't for them, they'll offer the salt cave. I totally forgot. I have a Pandora Star light meditation machine. I'll do that. I'll offer. Oh, you want to try that for 15 minutes? Would that help? But yeah, if you have another service or something else they can do when they get out, that's again another way to show great customer service, and hopefully they're not going to go and leave you a negative review, and they will enjoy the rest of their experience and say that aspect of it wasn't for me. Everything else was great. So, yeah, I think that's a great one, Kim. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So, challenging customers. We're going to move on to that. And this is one that I definitely struggle with. And I've seen a few things on the Float Collective recently that definitely speaks to this one. So, for when customers are being difficult, oftentimes we have an opportunity because it's either over the phone or via email, and we don't necessarily have to address the issue in the moment. We can take time to think about it. Of course, there's going to be things that happen, and we'll talk about that in a second when things happen in the moment. But whether it's email, you're going back and forth, you have to call someone back. Um, a lot of times the challenging customers, it's not right at the moment when you're face to face, but it's the time before or after when they're trying to figure things out. Um, Difficult customers challenge our egos, in my opinion. We, most of us, have spent a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of sacrifices, blood, sweat, tears, emotion, everything we have into opening our float centers. And we get defensive over them. We don't want anything going wrong. We don't want people disrespecting the float center. We don't want people disrespecting us. We want people to treat it with a certain level of care. And here's the thing, the world is not that way these days. The general public is in their own world. Everyone's doing their own thing. Yeah, there are people out there who don't care about your float center. They don't care about your towels. They don't care about your water bottle. They don't care about your shampoo on the wall. They're gonna slam that thing with a fist. Boom, boom, boom. It's gonna shatter and break off the wall. They're going to, uh, you know, uh, use some type of product that stains your towel. They're going to, pull something off the wall because they put their 10-pound purse on it and it rips off. Stuff's going to happen. So for me, I love to take space. I love to take a deep breath and not deal with things when they happen. I am on a week where a regular customer who I've known for 3.5 years, just my employees asked her about her hair. She fully lied to them and it leaked out. And now I have to address it. The employees are so upset. And I'm taking time to really go over my words that I'm going to choose because I don't want to offend her. Nothing like nothing major went wrong, but I don't want her doing that. And I have to stress that you can't do that again in the future. I do want you to come back. I don't want to make it awkward between us now. And so I'm trying not to fire an email where I say, how dare you, after 3.5 years, come and float when I've asked you 12 times about your fire red hair and you tell me you wear a swim cap and it's natural. And now I don't think any of those things have been happening because you tied a plastic bag around your head to try to prevent the hair from leaking. When the girls asked you about your hair and you just said, no, it's been there. And then there's red hair dye all over the place. So, first and foremost, I'm trying to check my ego. It's nothing personal. She didn't come in and say, screw Drew and squeeze out her cherry red hair all over the place. No, she wanted to float. She wasn't feeling well. She wanted to float. She wanted to feel better. Right. So I'm not going to take it personal. I understand that she just wanted to float. That's it. She wasn't coming in to ruin my towels. She wasn't coming in to ruin my water. I think we have a good relationship. I'm pretty sure she's a nice person and she's not trying to ruin my day by having her hair leak in the water. But she's kind of selfish because she still came in and her hair leaked in my water, which we've had many conversations about. So I'm trying to figure out a way when I do address it with her, how to be on the same page. And it's hard, but challenging customers, you want to stick to facts. Don't use your opinions on anything. Stay as factual as possible. This happened, that happened. The consequences of that happening are this. And really, you don't want to get into a back and forth where people are trying to excuse their behavior, because how do I, now I don't want to get her in a defensive where she's explaining why it happened, or it doesn't matter why it happened. I just want to let you know if it happens again, or if it happens in a more damaging way, these are the consequences. And that's the focus for me that I'm going to be focusing on when I send her my email telling her, hey, that was a close one. This is what happens if it if it bleeds into the water. And I'm going to lay out pricing. I'm going to talk about how if I shut down for 3 days, I'm going to charge her the money for shutting down. I'm going to remind her she signed a waiver, and that's what this is about. So hopefully we can get on the same page, and I can kind of uh, reinforce the need to be honest with us when it comes to the hair. So again, I try to remember, and it's not always easy in the moment. I try to take a deep breath and not respond right away, because mistakes happen. It happens all the time. And when it happens to something we love, it's easy to become defensive and upset and protective of your facility, whether it's your towels or, washcloths. I get it. But we're dealing with the public. It's cost of business that a towel's going to get ruined. It's cost of business that your water bottle is going to break, that your spray bottle is going to stop working. And, flying off the handle at those things, what's the net gain if, you tell someone, how dare you break my spray bottle? Yeah, you broke the spray bottle. It was an accident. I didn't mean to do that. So now you're just kind of coming in hot at me, acting verbally hostile, using a tone that is assertive, aggressive, upset. And I just had an awesome float. Yeah, I didn't mean to break your spray bottle. I'm sorry, but you're really upset about it. Now things are weird with us. And trying to avoid those situations as much as possible will keep people coming back. So I like to take a few deep breaths, try not to respond immediately if I don't have to, and truly think about the different options and how things could have gone better. I might call a friend who's in the float world or not in the float world to talk about it and to ask for feedback. Especially if there's a chance that things could go south and take a negative turn. I like to talk things out with other people before I get into those conversations. I also like to think, well, what do you think the other person would say? I like to be prepared for what the potential responses could be. And with that is, what are the potential outcomes? What are the positive outcomes? What are the negative outcomes? Are you so sure about how you feel with your reaction to a difficult customer that you will stand behind that decision if it all came out in public? And that is one of the biggest things that I definitely think about. The first 2-3 years, I was petrified of a negative review. So if I had a challenging customer, it was like a 3-time rule that I kind of gave myself. I try to be able to say, I did these 3 things to meet your needs, and none of it worked. I don't know what else to do. So if someone does go and give me a negative review, I get to respond, which the response becomes not to that person in particular, but to the general public, who will read both the negative review and your response to that negative review. But you can say, I tried X, Y, and Z. It didn't work. We're clearly not a good fit. Good luck. And you can move people along. It's hard, I think, especially when you first start out. This stuff matters more and affects you deeper each time it happens. The more it happens, the more you get used to it, the more you realize there is just going to be a little segment of the population that will always have a problem. You'll never satisfy them. And no matter what you do, they're just going to always complain about something. And I think it gets easier to accept those people for who they are, and to not take it personally, and not take it as a reflection of anything you're doing or your space. Your responses to difficult customers, they should be, think about, are they in line with your company values? Are you out here preaching love and happiness and peacefulness, and then firing off aggressive emails? That doesn't jive with who you're presenting yourself to be. Again, we all have moments and flare-ups where we get upset, and that's why taking a deep breath and not responding is a great way to really think about what your response will be. And even if someone is in person with you being difficult, you can always ask them, why don't you give me a little bit to think about this and I'll get back to you. You know, you can end a conversation too and say, well, you can say you have to go, you have to do something, you have to clean for the, make up an excuse to end the conversation and I'll reach back out to you. But we're in a service industry and things will go wrong and you'll deal with people who are unreasonable. And if you can show that you've tried a 3 times, and that's my number. Everyone's different. Maybe you don't want to try 3 times. I get it. But if you can show that you've tried, I think that eventually you might have to fire somebody, which um, I want to talk about that because firing a customer, and I put that in quotes, when you're stressed out and you've been working a lot of hours and you have to deal with someone who takes up a lot of your time and energy and gives you anxiety, it stinks when a customer comes in who gives you anxiety and you see that person on the schedule. You're like, ah, can't believe he's in here again. And there's always something with that person. And I need to get prepared for what it is. Well, um, sometimes you have to say this isn't a right fit. And on the PDF that I had put together for the FTA email that went out, I put an actual real life example of somebody who had sent me an email. Now, what she didn't know, she said she called more than 5 times and left me 3 voice messages to cancel her membership and refund $49. She hadn't heard back from me. She's most disappointed. Um, so the truth of it was she didn't call 5 times. I have caller ID. I don't tell people that, but I could see she didn't call 5 times. She called once when there was a snowstorm and we had gone home early on a Monday night. She called on Tuesday when we're closed anyway, but it snowed on Monday overnight to Tuesday. And then on Wednesday at, I think, 9:15, she called screaming at my employee. Gave us no opportunity to hear her message that she left on Monday or to respond to her on Wednesday. So that was it for me when she went off on my employee. And the email that I responded to her with was a real email that I sent to her. And I laid out what went on. I stuck to the facts. And then I said, since your expectations clearly do not align with what we provide, I think it will be best for you to find another float center to float at in the future. Good luck, Drew. Left it at that. Never heard from her again, never got a bad review, but I defended myself and my business by using facts of what went on. And if she were to go and leave a negative review, at least she knows what I'm about to respond with. Facts of what she did and her behaviors that led to her flipping out and me saying, find another float center. And I do definitely think it's easier to do over email versus on the phone. And so I do like, again, to create space, find reasons to not deal with things at the moment when things can be heated or the situation can be heated, and create that space, give yourself some time to think about it. And then I put it in writing so that I can stand by what I wrote. And every time I write something and put it in writing, I do so with the intention, will I stand by this if this goes out to the public? Yeah, I will. And I won't, if I need time to think about it, I'll take that time. But I do think that it's important to also fire a customer. Tell them this isn't a good fit. You stress me out too. Don't say you stress me out too much, but in your head, if they stress you out too much, tell them this just isn't a good fit where we don't seem to be meeting your needs. And I've heard stories of people saying that to customers. And then you know what happens? The customer starts, they drink a big cup of Act Right and starts behaving in a better way or a more appropriate way within the confines of how you run your business. And what else? Just to kind of wrap it up, every situation is different, but you want to try to be as emotionless as possible when responding to people. Choose your words wisely, stick to the facts and avoid your opinions. Be honest if you make mistakes, because that plays well. You don't get into an ego battle where Everyone's made mistakes and no one will admit it. Be the first person to say, yeah, I messed up in this area, even if other things went wrong. But if you did something as a mistake, say, that was my bad. Let me take care of this for you. And again, be prepared to live with your decisions on how you handle a situation. If, someone ruins your towel and you flip out on them, you're assuming they intentionally ruined your towel. Well, what if they had a good float? They're they're driving home. That was awesome. They get an email that, you ruined my spray bottle. Oh, I didn't mean to ruin your spray bottle. I didn't even realize I did that. I feel bad. Well, now it's weird. They hate me. Now I'm the person who ruined the spray bottle. I'm not going back there. So really think about, to me, I try to think about intention. Most people are not intentionally being challenging to us on purpose. We provide a service that is good for people with mental health issues. So I think there's a lot of that goes on with the challenging customers. We provide a service that is great for people who are stressed. And when people who are stressed, again, they're redlining all the time. So the littlest thing can become a big thing. Um, and um, just being aware of the the possibility that you might have to fire this person, or do your best to change your attitude and turn that challenging wacky person into a fun wacky person, if you will. And I think that's about it for my talk here, but I'd love to open up to any questions if anyone has questions, or if there was questions going off on the side.
That's a good bit.
What do you think?
I like it. And I just can't thank you enough for putting it all into writing so that we don't have to remember it and it's available for FTA members.
And there's actual examples of things people can say. And if anyone has questions, or even ever wanted me to like talk to a staff member or something, I love giving tips. And again, like in the float industry, what do we say? We lead with kindness. Like, remember that most people aren't like out to get you. They got problems. We provide solutions to some of their problems. So you got to kind of figure out how to mesh with that, and choosing your attitude is a big part of that. And I did see something about humor on the side. I love to smile. I love to laugh. I make jokes, and to me, I even giggle when I make a joke and it falls flat and they just stare at you. Like, inside I'm giggling like, oh, you blew it on that one, Drew. You bombed. So um yeah, people, like, that's part of what we do. We're dealing with the public. And I think instead of like getting defensive about some of the wackos that come into our, like, learn to love the wackos. I love people's weird, embrace that, and try to have fun with it. But if it gets too much and it stresses you out, get rid of them. That's kind of my opinion on that.
Actually, one of my favorite things that you said is that you just pick up the phone sometimes if you've got a hard client and you just ask for third party feedback from someone who's probably completely unbiased. I
Yep.
usually end up calling like my dad or someone to be like, you will not believe this person that was in the spot today. But sometimes it is just getting an unbiased opinion. Like, let's really not that, it's not that bad. Like, at the end of the day, if we're going to keep that person for a year, don't say anything. Just let it go.
Totally. And sometimes that's all you need is to vent, right? And or have someone say to you, oh, what's wrong with you? Like, that's not that big of a deal. Like, you must be
Right.
stressed out, right? Great point. And I think that is important. And again, that's part of taking space and not responding, and thinking about what's that end result, because we all have stories of challenging customers who have become members. And it happened a year ago, they're still a member, and you kind of fall into this little like, yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for you because you're so difficult to deal with, but I finally molded you into what works for me. And now we're at a good spot, you know? And
Yeah.
and then everyone's winning. They're getting their float and feel good, and you're getting it done within the parameters of your business. And you didn't fly off the handle and shoot them off a nasty email or anything like that.
Yeah. My dang unlimited member, one of them in Omaha, comes every day, 8:30. doesn't like to use our speakers or music niche, so he brings his own boom box. He likes to splash around because he says he's doing it for exercise. He's always walking to the storage room, grabbing extra towels when we put him in there, and then hangs out for like 45 minutes afterwards. It's like, when do I just tell you can't come back anymore? But for the unlimited membership, it's always worth it. I'll make it work.
Funny. Yeah. And that's that, like, he feels really comfortable there. So on the positive side, they're doing a good job. Whoever, like, staff's doing a good job of making him feel at home. He's taking it to the next level, but looking at the positive, he's feeling good enough and comfortable enough to do those things. So although the exercises in the float tank, I don't know about that.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you, Drew. This was super helpful. We had a good amount of people on throughout the session. So we're always open to questions if anyone else has a hard customer service question they want to get feedback on. Otherwise, we can wrap it up and send out your snapshot to the members.
Yeah, I love it. What else? Oh yeah, the days that you're closed, out of office responses. If you're not around, that's definitely something so that people don't get upset about. I saw that from Kim. But yeah, do the best. Just remember, we invite people who are troubled, and they're not ill intentioned, generally speaking. That's my last bit of love advice for the float world.
All right, thanks, Drew.
So, Mandy, what do we have coming up for the next?
Good point. Yeah, so for May, we're actually talking floating and pregnancy. So between doulas, client experiences, training your employees, how do you talk to women who come in and are pregnant about the benefits, about how they're going to be most comfortable, what that looks like for them. And so I think that's going to be the main focus in May, and there's a microbiology topic later this month too. So you can follow on our newsletter. We're on social media. You can see on Instagram and Facebook what we have coming all the time. I think that's it.
And I think that, Drew, your outline will be available for FTA members in the member only section of the website for the FTA member only. So anybody that was viewing this now or is viewing it at a later date, definitely go check that out, because I saw that document and it's basically like the training manual is pre-written. So thank you for contributing that, Drew. It really is awesome content and great value for anybody that's, has a float center or needs a little bit of advice or something to get them jump started, because it's so good. You are truly the master of this, my friend.
You're too kind, Jonathan. You're too kind. Keep going. Tell me more.
Well, Drew,
you.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate the kind words.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.